Hello and welcome. If this is your first time here, I'm Garth Allen. This is Racing News Now. And we're joined today by a face we haven't seen on here in a while. It's the ARCA Propaganda Minister, Mr. Charlie Krall. How's it going, man?
I'm doing well, Garth. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. Well, the last time we talked to you, you mentioned wanting to do a season preview. So here we are. That's what we're doing today.
Let's do it.
So we're going to talk all three series here. We'll start with main ARCA. And we never really talked about this season's schedule on here with you. We talked about it a little bit, just me, but we haven't talked with you about it. So let's talk about the schedule. What are your overall thoughts about this year's schedule?
So obviously I'm very, very biased, but I really like the schedule. There's always a couple of racetracks that I wish we could go to that are unfortunately always going to be on the sidelines, but the ones that we do have on the schedule, I think are fantastic. I'm really looking forward to those two road course races, two of my favorite road courses in the country, in Watkins Glen and Mid-Ohio. The short tracks that we've got lined up from Berlin to Salem to Iowa, I get excited at each and every one of them. And then we've got a short track race as our championship finale at Toledo, our home racetrack. I just don't think it's going to get any better than that. And then you mix in your traditional conjunction races at, Daytona and Talladega and Pocono and Kansas and Charlotte and Michigan. And I think it's a really, really great mix of racetracks. We really like that 20 number. It's a nice round number. But it doesn't break the budgets for our teams. It doesn't overload us with our TV partners. And, it's the right number of races for that, main ARCA Menards Series tour. And, I really am looking forward to getting things going because I want to get into that meat of that summer schedule with all those great short track races coming up.
Well, you mentioned the finale being at Toledo. Now let's talk about the changes on the schedule. What are your thoughts on all the changes? The Toledo finale, IRP being back on the schedule, removing Winchester. What are your thoughts on all that?
So firstly, let's talk about Winchester first. There's been a lot of change up at that racetrack in the last couple of years, and it is a great racetrack. Anybody who has ever been there will tell you it is one of the great short tracks in the country. It's located it's a little tough. It's pretty rural. There's not a big city anywhere nearby to really draw people from. So it's tough to sell tickets there. They do a wonderful job with the Winchester 400, and we like going there. We really do. It's close to home. It puts on a great race, and we've always been trying to build that date equity there, where like the Winchester 400, people know that weekend every year is going to be the Winchester 400. Well, we've been trying to build that same kind of date equity with the ARCA Menards Series. It's just been really hard to do. I don't think we've given up by any stretch of the imagination there. So, hopefully we'll be back to Winchester here in the next year or so and try to get that ball rolling there. But in the interim, going back to IRP in conjunction with the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series is phenomenal. I am so stoked for that event. We're going to have some pretty cool stuff going in and around town as a part of that. And man, I'm stoked. I think that's going to be one of the destination races of the year for short track fans all across the Midwest, to be honest.
I know it's a destination race for me. IRP has always been my favorite track. So
yeah, it's great.
I'm definitely one that's happy to see that back on the schedule. Let's talk about the racing this year, though. 5 cars going for the championship this year, which is up from the 2 that we had last year. Who are you most excited about that's going for the championship this year?
So all 5 of those drivers who have announced their intentions to run the full year, I think all 5 of them are very noteworthy and very worth discussing. I think 3 of them are probably going to be the ones that we see, actually battling for that title. I think Nick Sanchez probably is the guy that I would pick as the prohibitive favorite going in. And they're behind, between Daniel Dye and Roger Carruth. I think, they could easily get up there and win a bundle of races and get up there and take the championship themselves. The two female drivers that we have that have announced their intentions to run all 20 races, Amber Belkin and Tony Breidinger. I think we'll see them run competitively this year. I don't know that they'll be in position to go out there and maybe battle for that championship just yet, but I wouldn't be surprised to see either of them rack up some top 5 finishes and have some really good consistent runs. Just based on what we have seen from Tony in the past, she is 100% capable of running up into the top 10. I haven't seen Amber in person, race, as much as I've seen Tony. So I've got a little bit to learn about her, but I like her attitude. She was a lot of fun to be around down there at the test or the preseason practice, I should say, down at Daytona. And I'm really excited. I think to have, the 5 drivers that we have that have announced their intentions to go out there and battle for the championship, there's going to be a lot of great storylines throughout the course this year, and I'm looking forward to seeing them, kind of how it plays out.
So are we going on record here and saying that Nick is your championship pick?
I don't think that's a very, long limb to go out on right there. I think just based on, his previous track record. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's to me, it's Nick is the guy to beat.
Okay.
But I will also say Daniel and Raja are not more than a step behind.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about the East Series now. And I know we've talked about this a little bit off camera, and I know I've talked extensively on here about the East schedule and what that looks like for 2022. We know my thoughts on it. Is ARCA happy with what the East schedule looks like for this year?
So we're happy with what the schedule looks like, but we're not totally happy with what the schedule looks like. I mean, we would love it to get back up into that, 10, 12, 14 race, yearly schedule. But we kind of came in where the ebb and the flow, we were kind of coming in on the ebb. The flow was heading out to sea a little bit for a lot of different reasons. I'm not throwing anybody under the bus here, but it's just like things do. It's cyclical, and we kind of came on board with the East Series when it was on the downside of the cycle, and we're really going to be working hard to rebuild it and get it turned around. And I will tell you, just based on a couple of the announcements that we've seen, there's a little bit of energy around that East Series this year. Eric Caudell's team has announced, some plans to come and run some East Series races. I think there's a bigger announcement that I'm not privy to share just yet that we will see here in the next week or so that I think is going to, really harken back to some of the glory days of the ARCA Menards Series super speedway races back in the day. So, and that'll be an East Series announcement. So, I've got a lot of energy around that, a lot of high hopes for some continued energy and growth there. And, I think we would really like to get it to where that West Series is right now. West has got 11 races on the schedule, and there's a lot of teams that have committed to it. And, it's good on its own 2 feet. And I think we'd like to get that East Series back there. It's for us, it's not something that we're just wanting to say, hey, let's just give up on it and fold this deal into the main ARCA Menards Series and just be done with it. No, it's got a place, and it's got a great history. And I think we, as far as we're concerned, it's got a pretty solid future too. So we just got to get there.
So I guess to follow up on that, you mentioned how well the West Series is doing right now, not just in terms of car counts, but the races. Almost every single one of them last year was fantastic. The championship battle was great. Why is the West Series on such a high right now, but the East is not?
I think some of it's just the culture, East Coast versus West Coast. Those guys out on the West are pretty self-contained. you know, from Bill McAnally and Bob Burcotti, and you know, they really do set a pretty high standard of how they're going to do things out there. And you know, they have you know, traditionally and consistently over the years, you know, dating back to 1954 when that series kind of began as the Pacific Coast Late Model Division. They've kind of been off on their own and done their own thing out there, and we have done a lot to standardize some things, but you know, we have learned, you know, we don't really need to mess with those guys out west too much. You know, they've got a pretty good solid footing out there, and we kind of went back to that last year, and we saw the results of that, and it's been great. And yeah, that's probably the one thing that I'm looking forward to the most this year is getting to the meat of that West Series calendar, because I think we're going to have some really good teams. We've got some really great drivers. We've got a lot of really great tracks coming up, and I just want to carry that momentum on, you know.
So in terms of the East Series, then one thing that you and I have talked about a lot and has been talked about a lot in general is car counts. They weren't great in the East Series last year.
Yeah.
What are we looking at for car counts this year in the East Series? Just ballpark numbers. Should we expect a little bit better? Should we expect worse? What are we looking at here?
I would think that we will expect a little bit better, Garth. I don't have any, you know, solid statistics just yet, but I think we'll do a little bit better this year on an average. I think we're looking at 18 to 20 for New Smyrna, which I'd have to look and see how many were there last year. I don't really remember off the top of my head, but I think that's probably pretty consistent, give or take a car or two. But I think once we get to the meat of the schedule, I think we will see a few more full-time teams, you know, racing in that East Series each and every week. And I think the fact that you really only have to come and do 4 races, standalone races, and then you got those 3, you know, conjunction races, combination races with the main ARCA Menards Series, I think that's going to give, you know, some of our full-time ARCA teams, you know, maybe like an Eric Caudell, you know, maybe like a Brad Smith or a Zach Tinkle. You know, I think you may see some of those teams incentivized to come and run some of those East Series races too.
Well, it's good to hear. I actually wasn't expecting that high of a number for New Smyrna, so that is good to hear.
Yeah.
So with the same thing that we asked with the main ARCA series, who are you most excited to see that's been announced this year that's going to run in the East Series?
So there, like I said, there is an announcement coming that I'm not really privy to share just yet. But I think once you hear that, you'll understand why I'm pretty excited about it. You know, I don't want to jump the gun there, but there is some excitement around the East Tour. I know Visconti Motorsports has made an announcement already. I think Young's Motorsports has made an announcement already. I'm just excited to see that participation from those teams, honestly. You know, we need good owners to be the backbone of that deal. We need tracks, you know, racetracks and team owners to be the backbone. And I think we've got a pretty good core of both of those going right now.
Definitely. So, all right, let's move officially to talking about the West Series now. After the thrilling championship battle that we had last year and so many good races, how are we going to top that this year in the West Series? What is it going to be that good this year?
That'll be tough because I had a hard time following what was going on that final lap, if you recall. So but it will be hard to top. You know, I am. You know, I can remember the 1992 Cup Series championship battle. I mean, I watched that race live as it played out, and you know, those are kind of once in a lifetime kind of things. You know, to have the type of championship battle that we had last year, where you know it changed. You know, after one driver took the checkered flag, it changed. You know, so it'll be hard to top. I think we've got a pretty good mix of drivers out there that'll make a run at it to try to top it. But you know, I don't know if I could take that level of excitement 2 years in a row, Garth.
Yeah, I hear that. So They say you have to lose one to win one. Does that make Jake Drew the championship favorite this year?
I think it does. Honestly, okay. I know they didn't end up in victory lane last year, but I think that was fluky. They really should have won that race at Portland for a couple of different reasons. They really did. They should have won that race. They should have won one of those Irwindale races. They did. They had great race cars all year long. And I talked to Jake down at the preseason practice there in Daytona, and he was absolutely pumped. It's almost like he did win the championship last year. That's how confident and enthusiastic he was. So, I think that obviously, the McAnally cars are going to be tough, and it's not going to be a cakewalk. And we've seen that even an independent team like the Pedroncellis can come out and be competitive. So anything can happen out there. But I think you're right. I'm going to put my prohibitive favorite status there on Jake Drew heading in.
Well, yeah, not only did the Pedroncellis come out and be competitive, he almost won the championship and won a race. So
yeah,
he was probably the person I was most impressed by last year in the West Series. Just came out of nowhere, wins a race, almost wins the championship. It was incredible.
And that's exactly what we want this entire platform to be for. We want to be here for the Rev Racing development program and the Joe Gibbs Racing development program. We want to be here for that. So it's a critical role for us to serve, but we also want to be here for Paul Pedroncelli and PJ Pedroncelli to come out and hey, this is where we can come and race. This is what fits our budget, and we can come and compete. And not only are we out there making laps, but we can be out there and be competitive. And they really were a very pleasant surprise for a lot of people last year. And when they picked up that win, up at All American, I had a grin on my face that whole rest of that night.
Yeah,
it wasn't very long because it was really late here on the East Coast. But I had a big grin on my face because that is a great underdog story, and to see somebody kind of claw and scrape and do it the hard way, it's a well-deserved win, and it does. It just kind of proves that the theory behind what this platform is all about works. That's why we see guys like Andy Jankowiak coming and running with us. And, Greg Van Alst, too, is somebody who actually could be another contender for that ARCA Menards Series national championship. That's why these guys come and run here, because, it gives them a chance to come and run on the biggest stage in the sport, whether that's Daytona or Talladega or Michigan or, wherever. And they can do it on a budget, and they can do it and be competitive, whether it's the main tour, the East Series, or the West Series, I think that we have proven that, our philosophy works. We just got to spread the word and get some more, teams to buy into it.
Right. So we talked about it a little bit already, but there's been already a bunch of drivers committed to a full season in the West Series, or I think we're around 10 already that have announced that they're going to be full-time already. So who are you most excited for on the West side of things this year?
It's that same group that we had last year, and then you add in like an Austin Herzog, I think, there are some unknowns, but I really do. I want to see that championship battle just kind of continue on. It's like we hit the pause button, and now we're just gonna pick up and go. We're still waiting to see where Trevor Huddleston's gonna land. I assume he'll be somewhere. The Brancati cars are gonna be great. The McAnally cars are gonna be stout. It's just I just want to pick right up where we left off last year and just keep going.
So let's talk about the West schedule as well. We've talked about that a little bit on here, but again, that's something else that you and I haven't talked about, at least on camera. Specifically, 2 Portland races. I know we got your answer from the Casey Campbell video when we did the video. We pulled your thoughts from that. But why are there 2 Portland races? And it's got to be more than they just wanted 2 races. Why are there 2 Portland races?
So that's exactly why there are 2 Portland races, and that should energize a lot of people. That the Green Savory Promotions Group are energized enough about what this platform can bring that they've got 2 races out at Portland next year. One's an IndyCar weekend, one's an Xfinity Series weekend, and they want the ARCA Menards Series West to be a part of it. That's literally why. It's a great market for us, for the team sponsors. I know Napa does a lot to activate in and around those events. But that's literally it, man. When you've got a promotional group like the Green Savory group that wants you, it's hard to say no. You find a way to make it happen. And we'll also be running with them with the ARCA Menards Series national tour there at Mid-Ohio earlier in the season. So, it's great to have a relationship with those folks and to be a part of their weekend events. And, who knows where that could lead, Could you imagine an ARCA Menards Series East race down there at St. Petersburg? How cool would that be?
That would be cool. I'd be down for that.
I'm just going to let you know, that's pie in the sky. That's Charlie talking out, outside of school. But, but something like that, I mean, having a relationship with those folks, it really is great. And they really are. They just, it's a great fit for them. It's a great fit for us. Why not do 2 of them,
So to be clear, the second Portland race didn't force any other tracks off the schedule, right? It didn't prohibit anything else from being on the schedule. Okay.
We didn't take something off to put that Portland race on. It was just an added, instead of 10 races, now we have 11.
Okay.
Yep.
So I guess then on top of that, what happened to Colorado then?
I think that they had a tough year last year with weather. And then of course, we're still dealing with the pandemic. I think it was just a tough situation for them. I mean, Colorado has, been off and on the West schedule numerous times over the years. It's kind of like the Winchester, Speedway situation. I guarantee you at some point in time, we will be back at Colorado National Speedway. It was just after 2021 in that way. If you remember the weather that day, Garth, it was not great.
Yeah.
It was not. So, sometimes we just got to let those racetracks, rework their schedule a little bit, and we'll figure out a way to get back there. But, we hate to see Colorado National go, but we're glad to put Kern County, back on in their absence. So.
What's the limit on number of races that you would want in the West Series? Because I know you talked about 20 is that sweet number you want for the National ARCA. Is there like a sweet spot you want for like the East and the West too?
So I don't know what that number is, Garth. I think at one point we were thinking 8 to 10, but I think particularly out West, I think, we were kind of hoping that we would have more teams come and run some of our races that are, Iowa and Elko and, anytime we're in the middle of the country. But those West teams they're pretty set in, we just race out West. Every now and then you'll see them venture, to the Midwest or to the East Coast, but they really do. They really have a kind of a separate little culture out there. So I think knowing what we now know, maybe that number increases from 8 to 10 to maybe 12 to 14, but that's yet to be seen. I think where we're at right now with 11, if we do well with 11 and the team support it and there's a desire to do more, maybe we look at more. It really is, a lot of it's just car count driven and what the competitors are willing to tell you that they would like to do. Our ARCA Menards Series teams tell us 20 is good for us. I think once we get that competitor base built back up in the East Series, they will help drive that conversation a little bit. How many times a year do you want to come and race? 8 to 10, 10 to 12. That really is a big part of it.
Okay. Well, I think that's all I got for you today. So
that's it. I thought you were going to ask me some softballs. you know.
Some softballs. When do I ever ask you softballs? That's not what we're here for. So, any final thoughts on the season to wrap up here?
No, just remind people that we are making that move from Track Pass on the NBC Sports program over to Flow Racing. I've been a subscriber of Flow for 4 or 5 years now, and there isn't a weekend that goes by that there are not a dozen races that I'm really interested in watching.
Yeah.
I know the price point maybe is a little higher than people were used to there on the other platform, but it is money well spent. You'll get the Chili Bowl, you'll get every USAC National Series race, you'll get every All-Star Circuit of Champions race, you'll get most of the races at Eldora Speedway. There's other weekly racetracks that have their weekly program on Flow each and every week. And now you'll have ARCA Menards East, ARCA Menards West, Whelen Modified Tour, lots of NASCAR Roots programming. It's the best $150 you'll spend all year long, and I highly encourage everybody joins us as we're going to be kicking off the World Series here coming up, not this Saturday, but next Saturday down there in New Smyrna. So it's time. It's time to go racing, man. Let's go do it.
Yeah, we're getting close. If you haven't gotten that Flow Racing subscription yet, you got to get it very soon now if you want to see everything. So
do it, baby.
Yep. All right. Well, Charlie, thanks as always for joining us today, and I guess good luck on a good ARCA season. I guess you're not driving, but good luck as the series, I guess.
I appreciate it, Garth. We look forward to seeing you at the racetrack, pal.
Yep.